Hey guys, Josh Serraggio back with episode 4 of Mentality Reboot. Really appreciate everyone tuning into the podcast, following up on Substack, and leaving some comments on the YouTube Shorts. Really appreciate it and really happy to have the opportunity to, share my voice and my ideas. And I'm looking forward to eventually getting some people on the podcast that we can talk with. So, by the way, I posted a little bonus episode. And I'm going to keep trying to do this. They're little 2 to 3 minute episodes, which will be some of my blog posts. I'll just, do a recording of it so that you can also get it in podcast format as well. On today's episode, we're going to talk about communication, masculine versus feminine, how men and women affect each other, how to prioritize, and a little bit more. So, communication has been something that's been on my mind a little bit, and it's one of the reasons that I actually want to start the podcast. I think that it's really essential to be a good communicator, to be effective at sharing your ideas in a way that, people can understand, being able to articulate yourself. And, one of the things that I love about the podcasters that I listen to is they are very effective communicators. The way that they interact with their guests and so on is something that I aspire to be. And, even more so, I'd like to, learn how to speak a little bit better, speak a little bit more clearly, analyze myself in these types of ways. So communication has been on my mind. And specifically the question of how to be a better communicator, what makes a better communicator, and how we can get people to like us more and to want to interact with us more. Not necessarily like in a fallacious type of way where we're going to go out of our way and pretend to be someone else. Not that at all. So, and this idea came, or this, this idea I learned through Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson. He was discussing how conversations aren't a competition. And I think he went on to say that there's some studies that show the people that are ranked as very interesting are often people that just ask more questions. And I thought that was really telling, and I took a really deep dive into it, and I realized, man, the people that I love interacting with the most are people that are, one, already interesting in and of themselves with how they communicate, how they share their ideas, their experiences, and so forth. But another aspect that makes them, great people to talk to, very interesting, is how they engage you in your topics and what you're talking about. They ask great questions. They address points where they have issues in a questioning type of way. That's how they raise their points. That's how they kind of issue, some sort of problem with your logic. So this kind of led me to this thing, conversations are more of a dance. It's not a boxing match. And they're not just a stage for your opinions. It's an opportunity to ask, learn, and listen. So getting out of this frame of, winning this conversation, I'm waiting for this person to finish talking so that I can put my viewpoint on. It's kind of funny how when you really think about how certain people discuss topics, how maybe even you interact with other people, you can almost tell that, maybe you or the other person is just waiting to get their next point across. They're not even really listening to you. Like, they're getting the context, but all that context is doing for them is letting them preload the point that they're about to make. so that they can share their opinion, their experience, and so forth. And that's not really how it should be. And Chris Williamson made this great point, is it's almost like a match of tennis where you're waiting for that ball to come so that you could just hit it back and try to score a point on them. But that doesn't really make for like a beautiful match. What's a beautiful match is, one where you're setting each other up, getting great hits across the net. And you can do that in conversation as well. If you're talking with your friend, maybe you don't need to always try to steal the glory, make the best point, one up them. Maybe you can just set it up for them to make a great point, ask a question that shows that you're interested, shows that you want to learn more, and you ask a question that allows them to dive deeper. And I thought that this was kind of eye-opening to me. I mean, I love asking questions. I consider myself a decent listener, not great, something that I'm absolutely trying to be better at. But made me realize, man, I love when people ask me great questions. It makes me feel, hey, this person's listening to me. This person is giving me good feedback. They want to learn more about what I'm thinking. And it makes me feel great. And so, thinking about it this way really made me want to engage the people that I talk with in this same type of way, especially the people that I love and care about, because they definitely make me feel this way, and I want to make them feel even more like that. How can we do that? Stop just waiting for your turn to speak. Listen to what they're actually saying. And especially if it's something along the lines of they're talking about a passion, they're talking about something that they're very interested in. If your buddy, if your girlfriend is, maybe they're very into gymnastics and they've been training for 4 years and they're saying a bunch of stuff and you know a little bit about gymnastics, but not very much. We still kind of get this urge to we got to put our 2 cents in there. We got to say something that we know about gymnastics. But hey, why not just, not try to show them up and try to dominate the conversation in our own way. Let's just ask them a question. Let's let them go deeper. Because I love when the people that I care about are able to show that they love things, that they have passions. And I think that that's where people are also feel comfortable to grow. When the people that are around them actively and consistently show, hey, I'm interested in you, I'm interested in what you're doing, I'm interested in your passions, and I want to learn more about them because, your opinions matter and the things that you are doing matter. So if it's something that they're passionate about, hey, just let them have the lead on this. Set them up so that they can, answer some great questions. If you know just a little bit about gymnastics but not very much, but your friend's talking about it, and they mention something about the strength of gymnasts, hey, you don't need to be like, hear that and then immediately start preloading your point. Finish listening and ask questions. Maybe hey, gymnasts have massive biceps because of, the doing chin-ups, the straight arm chin-up. And instead of just pointing that out, just say, why do gymnasts have such big biceps? Does it have something to do with the grip that they're holding on? Because you wouldn't expect gymnasts to be so massive, right? It's about setting these people up so that they can show their knowledge. And also, you might learn something that you didn't necessarily know. Maybe it's not just that it's a chin-up grip. The point is, start listening a little bit more. Ask more questions. Don't just be in a rush to make a point. And even if you're in an argument with someone or you're disagreeing with someone, asking questions can actually be more effective in demonstrating the flaws in their argument because it forces them to think. And once again, this isn't about winning conversations. This isn't about any of that. But if you're in a disagreement, loading up an objective statement or a question that is like yes or no restricts people and makes people feel attacked. So ask some open-ended questions that is leading them towards your point. Make them flesh out their point. Don't give them all of the arguments beforehand. Let them kind of work it out for themselves. I think that that's a great way to go about it. You know, Hopefully you're not in many arguments where you have to do stuff like that. But I think it's just a good point that if you're having a kind of disagreement, just, hey, why do you think along these lines? Why do you think that that's okay? Why would you consider that appropriate in our relationship? Don't just tell them, well, I think this. Ask them why they think that. It'll probably break down the defensiveness that they're feeling a little bit. That's what I would think. So the next topic I think is really fun. The Great Western Debate. Masculine versus feminine. I think that this conversation is really funny. It seems to be a little bit reignited since Trump came in office and people are no longer afraid of getting canceled. But I think that it's ridiculous. Men and women are absolutely different. I think that it's comical that we're trying to say that the only difference between men and women is that women can get pregnant and that, they're trying to reject the idea that women are psychologically wired different. Yes, there are absolutely some women that inherently lean more towards being masculine. There are definitely some men that lean more towards being feminine. And that's all right. There's no problem with that. But the difference is that's just how they are. That's just kind of what they came into. But this active suppression of, oh, you can't be masculine, masculinity is toxic, trying to push men to be more feminine, calling masculinity bad, trying to push away from it for men, but simultaneously telling women that they need to be more masculine in the workplace and all these different things. It's so counterproductive. Why not just acknowledge that, hey, the bulk of men and the bulk of women are inherently and biologically different? I really don't see the problem with that. Because we have different strengths, and yet we can still be equal. I absolutely believe that women are more nurturing than men. Do I believe that all women are more nurturing than all men? Absolutely not. I'm sure that there are some very feminine men out there that are good nurturers. I'm sure that there are even some masculine men out there that are good nurturers. But that doesn't reject the claim that the majority of women are more suited to be nurturing than men. The same way that men are more likely to be protectors and providers than the average woman. That doesn't mean that there aren't some women that are better protectors than some men, right? So, there are outliers, but in general, this is how we've evolved. And we see this in the animal kingdom. I don't understand why we say, oh, this is a social construct. There are literal gender roles in nature. And they're not pointless. Do we really think that we're so smart that we can just reject thousands of years of evolution in biology? These came around for a reason. the way that masculinity and femininity work has formed because it works. It became a thing for a reason, and it's worked for thousands of years. So I do think it's very comical that our generation and, the past couple generations fight so hard that, hey, women can do anything that men can do. Yeah, they can. That doesn't mean that they can do it better. The same way that men can do anything that women can do, but that doesn't mean that they can do it better. Like, you're really going to tell me that the only difference between men and women is that women can get pregnant and have birth? Give birth? Like, no, come on. That doesn't make any sense. We need to get away from this push of more femininity for men and more masculinity for women. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It's fine to be these things, but to impose them forcefully, it's just crazy, and it's damaging. Before there was actually it's so counter what these people kind of stand for. The feminists, these super liberal people, they're all for diversity and variety, essentially. But then they try to numb everything down. When you're trying to make men more feminine, let me restart this. When you're trying to make men more feminine, when you're trying to make females more masculine, what are you doing? You're pushing them towards the middle. You're actually creating less variety. You're really enforcing conformity. You're forcing people to act. You're forcing women to act like men and men to act like women. They're going to meet in the middle. And there's going to be less extremes for masculinity. There's going to be less extremes for femininity. Yeah, like, that doesn't mean that that's good. When men are allowed to be more masculine, when women are allowed to be more feminine, as is in their biology, now they have this whole spectrum between the 2 points where, yeah, hey, some men might still be more extreme than the average masculine men, but they're not as much of an outlier than when we're trying to force everyone to be like this gray point mix of femininity and masculinity. There's so much more variety there because you're still allowed to be feminine if you're a man, and you're still allowed to be masculine if you're a woman in this circumstance. So I don't understand why we have to push that, you need to stop being masculine is violence, and then at the same time these feminists that push these viewpoints also, are offended by the fact that some women are more feminine, that some women want to wear dresses, they want to be taken care of by their husbands, they don't want to be the provider, they don't want to work, they don't want to do these things, they want to take care of their children, they want to be mothers. They're offended by that. Moving on to the next topic of how men and women affect each other, we have this yin-yang effect on one another where when men act a certain way, women respond accordingly. When women act a certain way, men respond accordingly. And we definitely see this, for example, from OnlyFans. We see that women, specifically the younger generation of women, are seeing it as more beneficial to become an OnlyFans model than to not. And that is because men are rewarding it. If men did not actively, support and pay for porn in such a large amount of ways, if they didn't buy these subscriptions, if they didn't, use these chat websites, if they didn't pay directly to people like on OnlyFans, women would not do it. It's the fact that men are actively rewarding it. It's no longer like considered a bad thing for some of these women because they realize, hey, I can get millions. That's way better than doing X. And it's because we've rewarded it. And in that same way, with this, you know, with this political landscape, specifically from the Democrats and liberals, I think that we can see this as an effect from women to men. Because the majority of women, specifically young women, are very liberal and Democrats. And we see this shrinking, to be clear, shrinking population of young men that are affirming these viewpoints. And that is entirely because these men are responding to how these women are acting. These women have very extreme viewpoints in some cases. They are, you know, pro all of these things that were once considered to be pretty morally incorrect. And just like, you know, whatever, against nature in some cases, they're supporting these views and the men are affirming it. And when you look at these men, they're not the average guy. They're not a guy that works out. They're not a guy that is traditionally attractive in the sexual marketplace. They got blue hair or whatever. They're fat, they're skinny, they're just downright unattractive, they're socially awkward, yada yada yada. They're the kids that, you know, before everything became acceptable, would have gotten bullied, to be very honest. And they've found this sort of strength in the woke movement, in the cancel culture, where, you know, they're trying to take power. And they're really doing it for sexual access, because they know that it's the only way that some of these women are ever going to even look in their direction. You know, they want to be that white knight. They want to be that hero in shining armor. And their way to do that, yeah, you know, I believe that women should be able to, I believe that trans men should, or trans women should be able to compete in women's sports. I believe that, you know, down with the patriarchy. I believe that transgenders should have all these rights. I don't even know. There's so much craziness here that didn't exist before, and it's really some of these ideas that just spawned from women, and these men have been reinforcing them. For example, when you go on social media and you see how many women are actively posting these, they are extreme left, like far left viewpoints. It is, one, the majority of them are women, and they're kind of counter opposite of far right Republicans. Didn't really exist very much until I think I started seeing them more this past year. But before, anyone that posted anything that was deemed politically incorrect, they were getting canceled, so they were afraid to post it because they didn't want to lose their job. They didn't want to get kicked out of college. And these people totally exploited that power. And when you look at social media during, you know, 2018 to 2021, there was kind of this feeling that, wow, all women are super liberal or super progressive. They're far left. And that's really just because women are, one, more active on social media. Two, the younger generation is more active on social media. And they felt like they had this moral high ground where, you know, it was like, either you're going to confirm my ideologies, you're going to confirm my viewpoints, or I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to try to ruin your life if you don't agree with me. And these same men that are weak men, traditionally unattractive men, found some kind of hope in that. They saw like a glimmer of hope that, hey, I can finally beat the Chad, the alpha. I can cancel him for all the stuff that he said. I can finally make these women attracted to me because I agree with their viewpoint. I'm going to support them. I'm going to be down with the patriarchy. I'm going to be a feminist guy. I'm going to do all of these things. And I really think that's all it is. Look at the amount of women that have boyfriends that are on OnlyFans. No traditional man, no masculine man is going to allow that shit. The only type of man that's going to allow that is a man that has no options. That he thinks, oh, this is the best opportunity that I'm going to get. She can do whatever she wants. And it's the same thing with how we see. There's really just been this massive increase in promiscuence, and particularly among women. And it's because it's being reinforced by these weak men who are telling them that it's okay. It's okay to have open relationships. It's okay to go fuck guys while you're in a relationship. It's okay to post your nudes, to do all this, that, and that. Like, those are weak men that are allowing these ideas. Like, come on. No guy that can get women, no guy that's attractive, that has confidence in himself is all right with that. Like, that is a very liberal concept that has been fueled by women in this, like, this deranged idea that, being promiscuous is sexually liberating, that being really a sexual deviant is in some way empowering. Like, it's not. But we have these guys that have reinforced it because they've seen the way that women are moving, specifically the younger generation, and they're reinforcing it so that they can gain some sort of power out of it. But also, just to be very fair, this is also permitted by men. Like, men are responding, but women also got here because men have allowed it. Once again, so it's all kind of this web where men do one thing, women respond, and the men did that because the women did this, and the women did that because the men did this. So, it sucks. It really does. But I think that we're kind of returning to normalcy to some degree, and I hope that continues to be the case, because it's not a good situation to be in where we're encouraging negative behaviors. So let's pull back, especially for the sake of women. Let's not encourage so much hedonism, which is really, it's bad for the soul. It's bad for men that engage in hedonism, that corrupt their soul, but it's equally as bad for women, and we need to stop encouraging it. Both sexes need to stop encouraging it, because we have a profound effect on one another, and we need to be the counterparts to one another. So moving on to the next topic, it's prioritizing what matters and having some flexibility. I think we get too caught up in this, I don't even know if it's necessarily this, but this desire to be completely disciplined, or to have a completely full schedule, to be doing all these different things. And that's not a good way to look at it. You need to prioritize what is best for you in your situation. For example, let's say you love playing pickup basketball. You think that it's great exercise, it lets you be social, and you plan on doing it twice a week. You're committed to doing that. You think that it makes you healthier. You think that it lets you socialize more, and it benefits you in all these different ways. but you're trying to write a book now. You've been thinking that it's a good idea. And you keep coming into conflict with the fact that you normally get off work and then go play pickup basketball on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6:30. And you don't want to go on, you don't want to write your book on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because you go to the gym after work on those days and you consider going to the gym more important than playing pickup basketball. But pickup basketball is posing, an obstacle to you writing this book. So this is kind of when you have to break down a little bit. Okay, I have a little bit of time after the gym on these other days to work on the book, but I definitely need more time than that. Like, just completely going, oh, well, I guess I can't write that book. That's ridiculous. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous, and it's not going to benefit you. You're not trying to become an NBA player. You're trying to get healthy, and you're already healthy if you're going to the gym 3 times a week. Missing pickup basketball to do something else isn't a problem. And I know that, and this is kind of like, maybe it's just kind of a funny example to me because I don't really care too much for basketball or pickup basketball. But, take for example, you take boxing classes, you do yoga on these days, whatever it is. If you're not trying to be a professional basketball player, you're not trying to really elevate your career, it's just a hobby that you enjoy that also provides health benefits and social benefits. Hey, well, you're trying to be an author. So are you trying to be what's more important here? You being a hobbyist or you becoming an author? If it's more important for you to be a hobbyist and writing that book, starting that podcast, learning how to play the guitar, I don't even know what it is. Becoming a social media influencer. Sorry, not learning how to play a guitar. Like creating a band, something along these lines. So you're trying to create something. You're trying to elevate yourself to a new level. You're trying to become something. If being a hobbyist and playing pickup basketball is more important, then by all means. But if you're trying to become an author and you know that those 2 hours that you normally play pickup basketball are an obstacle to you becoming an author, hey, maybe cut down on the pickup basketball a little bit so that you can have more time to work on your book. Like, you need to know what's worth prioritizing and what isn't. Like, if you have a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a husband, a wife, a really good friend, whatever it is, and you need to prioritize that relationship to some degree. You need to set up dates. You need to set up times to hang out and all these different things. But you also like playing Call of Duty and, whatever, you consider that little bit of downtime to be more important. Don't be surprised when people are offended. Don't be surprised when some relationships suffer due to prioritizing something that clearly is a lower priority task. So, and also like I was saying, have some flexibility to realize what's actually meaningful in this given moment. I think the gym, hey, if you're just starting off, that consistency of going to the gym every single day is super important, or going 4 times a week on a set routine, on a set schedule is very important. But if you're on year 3 or 4, hey, you could probably slack off. Not even slack off. Replace a day every now and then with learning a new skill, learning a new hobby, doing something else, because you're still, let's say you typically go 4 times a week, and this Tuesday you're really tired, or you're trying to get in the habit of reading more, and you've really been enjoying reading recently, but you know that you don't really have too much time. Maybe it's okay to just prioritize reading that book. You've already got the habit of going to the gym. You're going to go to the gym 2 more times or 3 times that week. Start that new habit that you think is good, and then work your schedule out in a way that's a little bit better once you kind of figure things out. But, have a little bit of flexibility, have some feel as to what's going to be the most beneficial in this given moment. And if you miss the gym, make up for it another day, especially if you're already consistent. Like, just do what makes sense. If you're only on month 1 of going to the gym, yeah, you probably shouldn't miss that workout. You should probably go. Don't give yourself an excuse to start quitting. But when the gym has been a part of your life and it's not going anywhere, obviously don't skip entire weeks or anything like that. I'm definitely not promoting skipping the gym, just to be clear. No one used this against me. I'm saying it's okay to have flexibility every now and then. You're not going to be Mr. Olympia. If you're just going there to get stronger and stuff, maybe that day off is actually going to be helpful. You go do something. The next topic is stop just being a consumer and go create something. I don't know what you'll create: a book, a software, a company, a podcast, a blog, a garden. Who knows? Just go do it. It doesn't have to be for money. It doesn't have to be for praise or status. It could just be something that you've always wanted to do. We live in a consumer economy where everyone is a hyper consumer. They consume everything. They consume social media, they consume podcasts, they consume books, they consume, you name it. Whatever it is that you're pretty good at, that you've got some experience with, people will probably listen to you and consume it. And you watch these social media influencers, you watch these podcasters, you listen or read these books from these authors, and you want to do it. You think about how cool it must be, but then you never do it. What is the difference between you and that gym influencer, or that podcast, or that author? The only difference is they actually did it, and they stuck with it. It could be you. If you stayed consistent, and didn't give up when it got tough, you could be that author. You could be that podcaster. You could be that businessman. Whatever it is, that guitarist, who knows? Whatever it is that you're feeling pulled to, it could be you. The only reason, there is no difference. These people that you see online, all these different things, they're literally just normal people that went out and did it. You think that they weren't scared, that they weren't worried about the judgment that they were going to receive from friends and family? Of course they were. But they still did it. And that's the difference. And I really do wonder, if you look at people specifically on social media, authors, whatever it is, that just stuck with it for 6 months, like if you're trying to be a podcaster or you're trying to be a social media influencer, if you actually posted 4 times a day, every single day, for 6 months, maybe missed a few days here or there, whatever, but you actually did it, and you stuck with it 6 months, what percentage of people hadn't improved? Do you really think that if you consistently posted quality content and it improved over the 6 months consistently, that you wouldn't have 1,000 followers on Instagram? And then what if you did it for another 6 months? In another 6 months? I can almost promise, if you're the average person, you're the average intelligence, the average attractiveness level, that does play a role, unfortunately, and you stick with it for 6 months, you'll probably be in a pretty good position. You'll probably be, surprised with how far you've come, but it probably won't feel enough, like you've come far enough, because it's never enough. But if you stick with it, you could be these people that you're thinking of. They're not above you. These people, maybe some authors got their master's in English in college. Who cares? That doesn't mean that they're more creative than you. That doesn't mean that they have a better story to write. That doesn't mean any of these things. And don't use the amount of time that you have as an excuse. You can go write a book. An hour a day for 6 months. I don't know how far that will get you. I'm not an author. But an hour a day for 6 months, 2 hours a day for 6 months. Why not? And don't just do it for money. Don't just do it in hopes that you're going to be the best-selling author or whatever. Just do it because you want to write a book. If you love reading books and you think that you can write a great story, just try it. Just try it. Seriously. What is the harm in that? You think that you're not going to learn anything? You'll definitely learn something. You'll learn how to write better. You'll learn how to piece together a good story. Who cares? Just do it. Stop just listening to other people and start listening to yourself. Start doing stuff for yourself. The same way that all these other people put out their content and you listen, if you did the same thing, people would listen. It's a consumer economy. There are people to listen to every single thing out there. So just start. Just go do it. Stop being a consumer and start creating. This is all for this podcast. I think I kind of botched a couple of areas. Really sorry on that. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. If there are any topics that you'd like me to discuss in the future, please let me know. I'd love to hear them, and I'd love to see what I can do to make the podcast better. Appreciate it.